All right, 10.3, areas of circles and sectors. Again, we are looking at the new vocabulary. You've got the sector of a circle and a segment of a circle. So, in other words, two parts of circles. Right. So, if you actually do an investigation, you will find that the circumference of a circle, going back to what you already know, is the circumference equals 2 pi r, or sometimes you'll see it as pi d. Okay, so c equals pi d. So this formula and this formula are identical, because don't forget 2 times the radius is the diameter. And then finally, for the area of a circle is pi r squared. Both of these you've used in the past, so you shouldn't have any problems with them. Okay, so let's have a look at question number 1 and 2. What's the difference? Well, question number 1, you've been given the radius. Question number 2, you've been given the diameter. So number 1 is obviously easier, because don't forget your formula A is A equals pi times the radius squared. Well, if you were doing question number 1, you would just replace r with 21 and square it and multiply that by pi, which will give you 1385.4, 1385.4, and don't forget you've got to go with a unit, so that's going to be yards squared. Okay, so there's question number 1, but what about number 2? You've been given the diameter. Well, the formula is still the same, so this time is A is going to equal, pi doesn't change, but this time your radius is half of 0.4, so that's going to be 0.2 squared. And if you put that into your calculator, rounding it up to the nearest tenth will be 0.1, and this is kilometers squared. Okay, so be careful, because like I say, question number 1 is the radius, question number 2 is the diameter, but for both of them you need the radius. All right, and as you know from previous chapters, they swap things around, so this time you need to find the radius, and they've given you the area. Formula is still the same, that doesn't change. Replace A with 95, and that equals pi r squared. You want the radius squared on its own, so you're going to divide that by pi, and then you've got to take the square root. But let's do one job at a time first. 95 divided by pi will give you 30.239, etc, etc, and if you square root that, you finish up with 5.5. Okay, well, how can you do this bit in one go? Well, if you open up your square root, open up a parentheses and do 95 and divide that by pi, and then close your parentheses and press equals, it will automatically take you to 5.5. So whichever way is easier for you, that's the way you need to do it. All right, so let's have a look at question number 3. It's still going back to example 2 if you still didn't quite get it, but this time we want the diameter and not the radius, and we're given the area. All right, so the formula is still equal, A equals pi r squared. Okay, do exactly the same procedure as before. You know that this is 74, and that is equal to pi r squared. Okay, next line, we're going to divide through by pi, so 74 divided by pi, and if you do that, that's going to give you the radius squared. And don't forget, at this point, don't forget we can square root everything, 74 and divided by pi, close your parentheses and press equals, and that will give you, so the radius will give you 4.85. Okay, but we want the diameter, so we've got to multiply that by 2 to get to the diameter. So D equals 2 times 4.85, which is 9.7, and we're back to inches this time, and it's a dimension, so it's just inches. So that's what you need to do. Okay, so question number 4, same thing again, you've just got to find the radius. In fact, that's millimeters, not inches. All right, so now we want a sector, an area of a sector, all right, of the shape. Now be careful, because in this diagram they're showing you the sector that they want, but sometimes they will shade in this, the major part, and miss the minor part out. So this time you've got to work out whether it's the internal angle or the exterior angle. But again, the formula is A equals the fraction or the degree over the 360 multiplied by pi r squared. Okay, so in example 3, what have you been told? You've been told that the diameter is 12, so your radius is 6, and you've got 8 congruent slices, but it doesn't give you what the angle is. But if you do 360 divided by 8, your angle is 45 degrees. So now you can swap that with what you've got here. So 45 over 360 times pi times 6 squared. Put it all in your calculator, but make sure you use parentheses, and you'll finish up with 14.14. Is that the correct answer? Well, it's asking you to the nearest hundredth, so it needs to be 0.14 at the end anyway. So let's have a look at number 5. Okay, so don't forget A is equal to x over 360, where x is your angle, pi r squared. Okay, well in this case we know that x is 57 over 360, and we're going to keep that in parentheses, and pi, and the radius is 3, so that's going to give you 3 squared. Put that in parentheses. And again, if you put all that into your calculator, you will get that the area of just that segment is 4.5, and that is inches squared.